You know, we all go through puberty. It's just a fact of life. But what if the timing of it, when it happens, held a secret clue to how we age for the rest of our lives? Today, we're going to dive into some fascinating new research that connects the dots between growing up and growing old. So let's just get right to the big question. Does growing up faster actually mean you age faster? It seems like a pretty straightforward question, right? But the answer, well, it's way more complex than you'd think, and it's a puzzle scientists have been trying to piece together for a long, long time. For years now, researchers have been seeing this pattern in the data. Kids who hit puberty on the earlier side seem to face a higher risk for certain health problems when they become adults. But the why, the actual link connecting those two very different stages of life, that's been the real mystery.
So let's really frame this puzzle. What are we actually talking about here? What's at stake?
While the stakes are incredibly high, the science shows a really clear connection between the timing of puberty and the risk of developing major chronic diseases decades down the road. And we're not talking about small stuff here. We're talking about things like heart disease and certain types of cancer. So you can see why cracking this puzzle isn't just an academic exercise. It has huge implications for our long-term health. Now, to understand this puzzle, we have to get into this really cool idea that your age might be more than just the number of candles on your birthday cake. Think of it like this. Your chronological age, that's simple. It's how many years you've been on the planet. But your biological age, that's a whole different ballgame. It's more like a measure of the wear and tear on your body's engine. Two people can both be 40 years old, but one might have the biological engine of a 30-year-old and the other a 50-year-old.
So how in the world do scientists measure something like that? They use these amazing tools called epigenetic clocks. Now, these aren't physical clocks on your wall. They're sophisticated tests that look at tiny chemical tags on your DNA. This process, called DNA methylation, creates patterns that change as we age. And, this is the key part, they can be influenced by our lifestyle and our environment.
And honestly, this idea of connecting a faster biological clock to how kids develop isn't brand new. A study back in 2018 already found that teenagers whose epigenetic clocks were ticking faster also tended to be taller for their age, were further along in puberty, and even had higher levels of the stress hormone cortisol.
Okay, so with all of that in our back pocket, how does the new research finally find that missing link?
Their theory was a pretty straightforward three-step chain reaction. Step 1, a child goes through puberty earlier than their peers. Step 2, this might lead them to engage in some riskier health behaviors as a teen. And then step 3, those behaviors are what actually puts the foot on the gas and speeds up their biological epigenetic clock. It's a really elegant hypothesis that they can now go out and test. So they set up the study, they looked at over 1,200 adolescents. What did they actually find? Here it is, the big reveal, right from the researchers themselves. They found that higher substance use was the key mechanism connecting all the dots. In other words, it wasn't early puberty itself that directly sped up the biological clock, but the behaviors that often came along for the ride. And let's be really clear here. Of all the behaviors they studied, and they looked at things like sleep and diet, substance use was by far the single most powerful link in this entire chain. Earlier puberty predicted more substance use, and that, in turn, predicted faster biological aging. And they found this effect on a specific epigenetic clock with a fittingly serious name, GrimAge. And yeah, it's called that for a reason. It's known to be an incredibly strong predictor of future health problems and even a person's mortality risk. So this is a very serious biological marker we're talking about. But the plot thickens, because when the researchers split the data between males and females, the story got a little more nuanced. For males, they actually did find a direct link between early puberty and faster aging, but it was on a different clock. For females, the big connection wasn't puberty, but actually shorter sleep duration that predicted faster aging on that serious GrimAge clock. It just goes to show you, there are probably a few different pathways that can speed up the clock. So after all that science, what's the big picture? What's the real-world impact of all this? What this research really hammers home is that the choices teenagers make have real, measurable biological consequences that can last a lifetime. The big takeaway here isn't just that early puberty is a risk, it's that the years right after puberty are this uniquely vulnerable time, and how a teen navigates that period can literally change their biological age. And substance use seems to be one of the main levers in that process. And all of this leaves us with a really powerful final question. This research points out a problem, but it also points toward a potential solution. If specific behaviors during our teen years can accelerate aging, then maybe, just maybe, focusing on supporting healthy choices during that critical window could be a powerful way to protect long-term health. So the real challenge the science leaves us with is, how can we best help them hit the brakes?